So now we have created a profile, viewed the existing surface on that profile, also viewed the vertical alignment on that profile, and now we've annotated that profile. Lastly, before we move on to cross sections, I'd like to show you how to find some of the information on that vertical alignment. So just like we have done with the horizontal alignment and the surface, what we can do is go to Geometry, Review Vertical, and you see it's selected here. And again, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see here. But this allows us to take a look at a report of the vertical alignment. It gives us all the different elements that make up this alignment with all of the information that was annotated as well. So this is a useful way we can then either print this profile and have a graphical display of this information, or we can save this text file, this report, and send that out or print that as well. So there's a few different ways to find this information that you're looking for on the vertical alignment, and this is one way that I found is a good way to show all of the information that I typically look for all in one place. And again, just like I showed you with the horizontal alignment, we can go to element mode, and it just selects each element individually and shows us just that information by itself. So if you have a hard time using this alignment mode and a hard time finding the information that you want, because there's all these numbers here, all these different elements, you can just cycle through using the element mode here and cycling through each individual element of the alignment. Alright, again, if you didn't catch that the first time, that's under the Geometry menu and then Review Vertical. So that is how I got to that report. And another way to do it, which I commonly use, is the right click on the Cooper Street vertical. So this is the Cooper Street vertical alignment here. If I right click, just like we did when we had to set the Cooper Street alignment as active, we can also do a review, and it brings up this review right here. And you can do this with the horizontal as well, and that's the report that we saw earlier. So all these right click menus, as you'll notice, are context sensitive, so depending on what you're selecting, a right click menu shows up that has tools or options for that particular element. Let's move on to cross sections. The cross section commands are found underneath the evaluation menu pull down, just like the profile commands. So profile, cross section, and volumes are all found underneath this evaluation menu. So go to evaluation, cross section, and then cross sections. In the newer versions of InRoads, they have condensed a lot of cross section tools into this one cross sections menu or command. So when I open this up, we see that there's create cross section, annotate, update, and end area volumes all found under this one cross sections tool. In order to use these others, we have to first create a cross section. And just like we saw with the profile command, this dialog has a lot of different options for how to display the cross sections. So you'll see a lot of these are the same with the axes, the grid, the controls, as well as the source, where we have these different options for selecting the source for our cross sections. But first I'm going to go with the General tab and I'm going to change these to -50, left offset, and right offset of +50. We're going to leave everything else as default, and we're also going to make sure that the existing ground surface is selected, because that is the surface in our InRoads file that we want to display. Going back to the source leaf here on the left, we're going to choose the Cooper Street alignment. And one thing to note in this cross sections dialog here is that we can create a custom cross section range. So for this range, for this particular range, we can set up the interval, left and right offset, as well as the skew angle and all of these other options down here for this particular range, and then we can add this together. So as we go along different ranges along the alignment, we can use different settings or display settings. So if you have a particular portion of the alignment that you want to highlight, this would be a good way to do it under the custom menu here. I'm going to leave everything just as it was so that we can then apply this and see what these are going to look like. So I'm going to click apply, and again it wants us to identify the location just like the profile did. We're going to be selecting the bottom left corner of the cross sections. So what I'm going to do is select just above the profile here, this corner right here. And you see it's going to process and bring us back up with the cross section dialog, which then I want to close in order to view my cross sections, and here they are right here. Alright, so it's created 3 sheets of cross sections for us that we can then zoom in here. Here's our starting station here, and it goes up like this to 10 plus 50, and you'll notice that it goes from 10 plus 35 to 10 plus 50, and then most of these are 11, 11 plus 50, 12 plus 50. So a lot of these are even stations here. So it starts with an odd station and then goes to the nearest even station. But what you'll also notice is that in particular there's surface features that are being displayed, which is why they're using these stations where those surface features occur. So that is why it may seem random, the stations that it chooses to display, but that is where they're getting that information. Alright, so this is our cross sections. If we go back into our evaluation menu, hopefully you've been able to create your cross sections and make it look like these here, but we can go to our cross section viewer. What this cross section viewer does is it allows us to zoom in to a particular cross section. So if I select the first one, it zooms in to it here, and we can use our cursor to dynamically select the offset and elevation here by snapping to these points on the existing ground surface. In our cross-section viewer, if I just click down, you can see it zooms to the next cross-section. So I'm just hitting my down arrow and going through each one of these, and we can see the surface is changing as we go along. You could also run this in movie mode, but this tends to bog down your system for quite a while it runs through, and so I just like to use the down and up arrows to create my own movie mode. Alright, so that is setting up the cross sections for our existing ground surface. And you can see here that we have 0 and then negative 50 and 50, and so this is the left offset and right offset that we were setting in our cross-section dialog box, which we could set that to whatever we wanted to, depending on how you wanted to view your cross-sections. I'm going to close the cross-section viewer and zoom back out to see all of the cross-sections here along with our profile. Alright, so what have we done now? If I go back and view my surface, say view surface perimeter, apply, close. So now what are we looking at? We're looking at the perimeter of our surface that's in our InRoads here. We also are looking at the horizontal alignment with its stationing and horizontal annotation. We're looking at 2 profiles, one that has the existing ground surface as well as the vertical alignment, and the vertical annotation in it. And then we also have now created cross sections of our existing ground surface. So these are some of the fundamental tools of InRoads that you will use on a daily basis when working with InRoads.